Okay, good to see you again. And you will remember that United Nations Development Programme is one of the co-founders of this event. And I will tell you that I'm quite new to UNDP.
You guys are the most amazing traffic managers.
Someone helped me out, thanks. Only 4 weeks here in New York, but I have come across one of the most exciting and I think innovative projects that UNDP will have ahead. And I'm really looking forward to this session to hear even more about it. And please pay attention because I think that it's a very interesting thing coming ahead of us. And also then, welcome to stage Yu Shang, who's the host of ABC Newsline and who will introduce the panel of this session.
Thank you.
Yeah, oops.
I believe the whole panel is coming. I'm being joined by my friends who you'll hear from in a moment. We are thrilled to be here. We are thrilled that you are here.
Yeah.
Yeah, you can applause for that.
Okay.
There's so many things we could all be doing on a Sunday, and yet we made our priorities to be here. We're going to launch this fabulous panel with a fabulous video that is narrated by Sir David Attenborough. Here we go.
As a species, we are taking our planet for granted. We take our biodiversity for granted, our tigers for granted. Sadly, even one of the most majestic creatures on Earth, the rhinoceros. Animals are a fundamental part of our world, our culture, our society, and our language, even our filmmaking and marketing. In fact, images of animals appear in approximately 20% of all advertisements that we see. Yet, despite this, animals do not always receive the support that they deserve until now. Introducing the Lion's Share, an initiative to ensure that animals receive the support that they deserve. Backed by the United Nations Development Programme and foundation partner Mars Incorporated, the Lion's Share encourages brands and organizations using images of animals in their marketing to donate 0.5% of their media spend to the Lion's Share Trust. Meaning, every time an animal is featured in an ad, that brand will make a contribution. The money will then be dispersed across the world to save species from extinction, preserve wildlife habitats, and look after animal welfare. And whilst 0.5% may seem like a small amount, if the top 10 advertisers in the world sign up, it would mean an annual donation of $47 million. Our ambition is to raise over $100 million per annum. By making a small difference today, we have the opportunity to make an unprecedented difference tomorrow.
So it's called The Lion's Share, and this panel is all about getting creative minds in the world of advertising and film and art and coming up with creative ideas to help sustainability. I'm going to introduce the panel. I'm going to start with Achim Steiner. He's sitting right here. He is the UN Development Program Administrator, and he spent a decade at the UN Environment Program, and he comes from the world of academia at Oxford and also at NGOs, and so he's bringing all of that talent to bear on this. To my immediate right is Farwiza Farhan. She's a conservationist and an activist from Sumatra, Indonesia. She heads the Aceh Foundation and works with elephants and other species that are endangered. To right is Marie, oh my goodness, where did I put your last name? Lalmen. Yes! From Nielsen. And Nielsen, as you know, is all about sort of data and analytics, and they're going to bring their talents to bear in looking at how the advertisers are spending money. And to my far right, last but not least, is Andy Farrow. He's with Mars Incorporated. He's the VP of Corporate Affairs and Strategic Initiatives and Sustainability, which is a great word to have in your title, and I'm so glad you're all here. But let me start with you, Achim. Tell us how this is all going to work.
Well, first of all, let me say thank you to Sir David Attenborough, because it's not often that he lends his wonderful voice to such an initiative, and I think it says everything about why we're here. This is an initiative that brings together the power of an idea, a commitment, and also a passion, which is to protect biodiversity, wildlife, environment, animals, with the power to act, first of all, of money. Without money, it's very difficult to sometimes do things at a scale. We can all do something individually. And this is where Mars, BBDO, and Finch, our colleagues who actually came up with this idea of the lion's share, have created a whole new platform. We are trying to combine an economy of $600 billion, which is an advertising and marketing economy per annum, to a minuscule investment of 0.5% that could go towards doing extraordinary work that is so urgent across the whole planet. Creating the institutions, the training, the opportunities, the space, the habitat on which life on Earth can continue, because right now we're losing it at an unprecedented rate, and that's why we in UNDP, together with our sister agency, UNEP, and many others, are so keen for this, because this is also an inspiring partnership.
And UNDP will be in charge of distributing and making sure that the funds are used in the right way. But Andy, let me get to you. Why, as a corporate entity, why sign on?
I mean, I think for a couple of reasons. I think that the first one is that as we look at the world, as we look at the environment, if we look at our plans for what we want to do, we recognize that animals play an integral part in that. And you can't just care about people. You have to look at the whole picture. I think the second thing that as a company, we have responsibility to kind of make steps towards the world we want to see tomorrow. We're a big advertiser. We think we can make a difference here. We think it will engage consumers, and it will deal real practical impact. And I think a new model of business is emerging, that where companies are recognizing that to be successful for the long term, they really need to take responsibility and take action. And up on the screen there, talking about 2030. 2030 will be determined by decisions we make today. And we just think here's a simple, relatively easy decision we can make today and galvanize others to be involved and be part of this really coalition of the willing.
That's absolutely true. And also, animals are such a lovable entry point for this kind of sort of involvement. But Marie, let me get to you. How does the Nielsen Corporation track this kind of spending, and how might that play out?
Yeah, so actually the Lion's Share initiatives is empowering the brands to be able to give back to the animals and their habitats when they are using them in advertising. And so the Nielsen company, when we were approached by Lion's Shares, we immediately decided to leverage one of our global tool. This is the Global Ad Intelligence solution. And this solution is actually collecting and we're going to do that for Lion's Shares. It's collecting ads all around the world, not only what ads, what creative is being projected, but also when it's been projected and where. So we are going to collect all this information and share it with Lion's Shares so that Lion's Shares has the ability to understand and see how much funds should be collected depending on their brands that are being advertising using animals.
And what's great is that it shows how much corporations are willing to step up when asked. And so I know that, Farwiza, you work in Aceh province in Indonesia. You're just going to get more money to do more of what you do. But tell us, both in terms of the conservation part and on the animal welfare part, what you do there.
Okay, I work in this place called the Loise ecosystem. And it's important to note it is the last place on Earth that still have tiger, rhino, elephant, and orangutan roaming together in the wild. It's 2.7 million hectares of intact forest. Like nowhere else on Earth. It's the last place in Sumatra. And it's our last hope. The Loise ecosystem, the work that we do is not only to protect, conserve, but we also restore the Loise ecosystem. So what happened in the past few years is we were always baffled to only protect primary forests. But we learned that if you cut down the entire the invasive species, you could actually get the animals to come back to an area pretty soon. So in 2009, we restored about 3,000 hectares of a former oil palm concession. And since then, within 2 weeks, elephants come back. And those elephants help us so much to restore the forest. What they do, plant the seedlings through the dung, and within 3 years, orangutan come back. So, yeah.
I always find how amazing. how amazing dung is in the ecosystem.
Exactly.
Akim, how will you prioritize the funds and how will the oversight work?
Well, first of all, I think we are going to have the lion's share be something that will attract people to send their ideas, because much of what the lion's share is built on is it is going to be a brand for imagination, for bringing people to say, look, I have something that I can do. Will you finance me? Obviously, we have a group of experts that will review the proposals, and there is the fiduciary responsibility, which is one reason why we also brought the UNDP partnership in here. And it's our network on the ground. UNDP is active in 170 countries, so we can immediately, without any delay, connect to the people who are actually doing things on the ground. And from there on comes the implementation, the support to people like Pablo who are actually leading the effort on the ground.
And I understand it's as much sort of land acquisition for habitat, but also to work on animal welfare and even on exotic pets and domestic pets, right?
Well, obviously there's a partnership, and I mean, maybe Andy might want to say something, because one reason why Mars is also interested here, you know, some people might know it because of a Mars bar, but it actually has its business in a remarkable broad market area. But, you know, our interest is to connect people to their capacity to preserve life on Earth. It's animals, it's biodiversity, it's ecosystems. And when we talk about ecosystems, let me just say, you just heard the example. There's a lot of stuff in animal dung and elephant dung that makes life happen, and we don't understand this sometimes. This is when ecosystems are alive and are preserved.
Andy, how do you inspire other corporations to step up and do as Mars has done?
I mean, I think the first thing is just by making it aware of what is there, what's the opportunity, and really asking the question, why not? You know, all of you are in this room. You ask the question, why not, of other companies. Look for the opportunity. Yeah, and we had perhaps a closer link. We have a very large pet care business. We're probably the largest employer of veterinarians in the world. And we use animals in all our advertising, even in some of our candy advertising. We had a cartoon giraffe in one of them, and that counts.
Cartoon animals count, I understand.
In the lion's share. So the computer generated. So I think it's really, people need to ask the question. And there's not really a good reason why not to be involved. In the scheme of things, it's a relatively small sum of money for the amounts of money that companies put into advertising. So, you know, that's the question. And so, everybody here can play a role in asking that question.
Right, and you could ask on social media of corporations. I seem to think of geckos and Tony the tiger and all sorts of
It's actually amazing
brands.
how many companies are working with animals as their brand. You know?
Right. Marie, 0.5%, or as Sir David Attenborough says, not 0.5%. It doesn't sound like a lot, and yet, you know, you work with numbers. That's a lot.
At the end of the day, it's going to make a huge difference between what's happening now and what can happen tomorrow. It's not a lot, however, it's a new approach, and it's giving the opportunity to empower the brand to give back, which is a very emotional concept, even if it's based on data. And this is true that animals are part of our lives. It's also part of what our children are caring about all around the planet. And not only helping biodiversity, but being sure that the numbers, in this case, helps collect the funds that's going to transform that into a concrete example, just like we had.
And Farwiza, you are Indonesian by nationality as well, and you've obviously studied abroad, and yet, how is it that you're going to use grassroots momentum and boots on the ground, as you say, to fix this problem?
At least there are three things that we are doing. We are working with local community to patrol the area to make sure that there are no illegal activities. And
so poaching efforts.
Poaching, encroachment, illegal logging, all sorts of illegal forestry activities. We are also working with women and local communities to empower them to take on legal action, to understand what are the legal rights in regards to the environment. For example, so they could read the environmental impact assessment that company issued prior to allowing certain development to happen, prior to allowing certain exploitation to happen. And we are also, of course, working with the local community to restore the forest that we have lost. Because at the end of the day, when the forest is destroyed, natural disaster happen, this community are in the front line. They are the first to receive the impact, and they are the ones that have most at stake to make sure the forests are protected.
Tell me, in what way is this one of those ideas that helps create these unusual partnerships, and how important that is?
I think it's fantastic, and I would love you all to take this lion's share idea out there, because what it basically says is we need to find different ways of working together. We are losing the battle at the moment in terms of loss of biodiversity, of habitats. The foundation of life on the planet is threatened, and here we are. We bring actors together that traditionally would have looked at each other and perhaps blamed each other. And what we're doing is also not greenwashing. That's very important, because this is not about greenwashing. It's about saying, look, you're going to spend $600 billion on marketing and advertising. Why not become part of the solution as well by bringing some of your resources to help the very species that you use to succeed, to also help them succeed? And to me, I would love to have UNDP be part of this partnership today, because my strapline ideally is UNDP is imagination at work, and this is imagination at work.
Well,
and
and
I
you
just say one thing
sure,
to the many
of course.
people who are watching us this morning. You already alluded to it. You can all do something about it, because you're all watching these adverts, presumably also buying these products. Next time, just watch out how many products that you buy actually have an animal logo. And if you have a moment, send an email to them and say, why are you not part of the lion's share? This is what you should be asking. And you'll be surprised how quickly they will come together.
It's all about accountability. And greenwashing being that using this as a halo effect and polluting in other ways in a corporate sense.
Clearly, a company who joins the lion's share would be ill-advised to continue doing business as usual if they have a problem on the environmental front. So it's also a commitment internally for companies to take their own responsibility more seriously, because they will be looked at also with a clearer eye from the public.
Andy, I know you fought to get sustainability in your title, so I made a joke about that at the beginning, but why is that important?
I think that from a business like Mars's point of view is that our footprint, when we examined our total footprint, it's the size of Panama. So we as a company have the impact of a small country. And so it is tremendously important that you look at what the challenges that are facing the world, look at what the science says, and then take action against it, which is why over the past year or so, we've made a lot of noise about things that we're doing. We've committed to invest $1 billion over the next couple of years in dealing specifically with things, primarily actually within our extended supply chain. If you're going to be successful as a company in the long term, you're going to have to take sustainability seriously. One, because your supply chains depend upon it. Two, because consumers will vote with their feet if you don't. And thirdly, your companies are really just collections of individuals. And if you want to be a member of the human race, you better start dealing with the challenges that are faced. And this lion's share is a simple, easy proof point of taking action in a way to motivate change, and change that will not happen if we just leave it individually to governments or individual companies or individual NGOs. No one of those is powerful enough to drive the kind of change we need to see. So it's about this coalition of the willing, and this is what this week is all about, actually. It's about those coalitions of the willing.
Marie, what excites you the most about entering into this partnership?
Well, actually, this is almost a personal situation, even if the company decided to do that. In Nielsen, we're trying as an employee, we're trying every day of our life to understand customer across the world. And when we do that, we also are collaborating locally to help the communities. And the fact that Lions Shares has asked Nielsen to be a founding member is giving us, as a Nielsen employee and our associates around the world, the ability to do good through our Data for Good program. But at the end of the day, it's becoming very personal inside our company as well. As you said, this is something that every one of us want to be part of.
Fawwiza, it seems to me it's not just more funds headed in your direction, but a spotlight and a validation from the international community and the corporate community. What more can you do with this added benefit, and what are you hopeful for?
There is so much more we can do with this added benefit. For example, our organization are collaborating with 10 other organizations on the ground. We're always making sure that our efforts are coordinated, and this just expands that collaboration opportunity beyond our NGO circles. We talk with private sectors. We are now in conversation with, of course, UNDP. And the Loiser ecosystem would have more spotlight like it never have before.
That's incredible and really important to point out. The last few minutes, I'm going to give you closing thoughts. Achille, let me start with you.
I just hope you will join us. The idea that we're presenting to you today is whole new territory. It's, you know, in the spirit of the United Nations, we want to create the conditions under which nature, people, the planet have an opportunity. So through this partnership, it's a kind of reverse payback time. Let's pay back some of the money that we earn from nature into nature. And later this week, you will see one of the world's leading current affairs brands joining us. We are building a partnership that hopefully is going to inspire millions of people across the world because of the reach of the very industry with whom we are working, namely advertising and marketing.
And the creatives at Finch want you to know that the hashtag is Lion's Share, one word. Any final thoughts, Andy?
My final thought is I really don't want to be on this panel next year because I want so many companies to have signed up and joined that, you know, the panel extends and I'm sort of sitting somewhere around the corner there. So,
That's brilliant.
my ask of you is really expect more of business, ask more of business. You know, we listen to what consumers say, and that's pretty much the case, I think, with many, many companies. So the power of the individual to ask a question, I think it will drive change.
Well done. Marie?
Yes, and Nielsen, we actually collect and monitor what consumers do. So you have the power to make things change by, you know, selecting and going after this cause as well.
Fawisa, I'm going to give you the last word. Thoughts?
I actually want to add to what you said. Each of us have power to protect incredible places like where I work in the Loisa ecosystem. But there are still so many incredible places in the world that need protection and that need restoration. We all could do something, and of course, there's hope.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Enjoy your day. Well done.
Thank you.